This last summer, I did a video ranking some of the best and worst luxury fine jewelry brands, a video that so many of you appreciated, but of course there were plenty of additional brands I didn't get to that you still wanted to hear my thoughts on. So here we go again. Today we're diving even deeper into the world of luxury fine jewelry, from the most iconic heritage houses all the way to the up and coming visionaries that are redefining what fine jewelry looks like in 2025. We'll cover the best and worst brands to invest in. I'll share with you my thoughts on whether or not it's worth your time and effort to look into fine jewelry offered by fashion houses like Hermès and Louis Vuitton, as well as what brands are more about hype than heritage at this point. I am looking at you, Chopard and Esprit. But without further ado, if you'd like to find out everything that there is to know about some of the most popular luxury fine jewelry brands out there, including the mainstream and the ultra exclusive, then make sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe down below if you haven't done so yet, and keep on watching. But before we get into today's ranking video, I must address the elephant-sized diamond in the room, which is my beautiful new signet ring. It's a piece that some of you eagle eyes have already noticed and asked me about. It's something that I've had in my collection for a couple of weeks, but I really wanted to wear it and test it before I come on here and review it for you. Even though it's a piece that I've had on my mood board and in my mind for quite literally years. It's one of those classic iconic heirloom pieces I have always wanted to have, not only in my own collection, but I hope it's something that I will also be able to pass down to future generations. And it is from a brand called Angara. Angara is a fine jewelry house with over 400 years of gemstone heritage, and for the first time they are launching their men's collection called Angara Men, and it is a launch campaign that I am working on with them. But this is a ring that I chose myself. It's a design that, as I said, I've had on my mood board for a really long time. But what's great about Angara is that they're really redefining what luxury fine jewelry looks like in 2025, because each and every single one of their pieces is made to order. They keep every single step of the process in-house, from sourcing all the way to manufacturing, which means that they cut out the middleman and they're able to offer exceptionally crafted pieces at unbelievably reasonable and accessible prices. What's great about their pieces is that they're all customizable, all the way from the metal to the gemstone. So you can pick what type of precious metal you would like your piece to be in. You can also choose the shade of gold as well as the type of stone that you're going for. Of course, I had to go for a piece that I've had my eyes on for years from this new collection, which is their incredibly modern, clean, and minimal take on a signet ring. They do have several signet rings in this collection with different stones and stones in different orientation. What I think makes this signet ring look really special and really modern is the orientation of the diamond, because I did go for a piece with a diamond in it. Quite a large diamond. I believe this is 1.8 carats, but because of the several different types of diamonds they use, these rings are a lot more accessible than you would think. I believe they start at just under $3,500 if you choose to pick this piece up with a lab-grown diamond, which lab-grown diamonds should not be underestimated. They are chemically identical to a naturally mined diamond. So if you're looking to get the same sparkle, the same impact, the same fire in your piece in a really ethical way, lab-grown diamonds are an amazing option. Not to mention that they have also given us an unbelievably generous discount code, which I believe is GP12, which should get you 12% off any one of their pieces, as well as an exclusive jewelry gift. But I will make sure to have all the details listed and linked in the info box for you. If you've seen any one of my ranking videos, I'm sure you know the drill by now. We always use the same tier maker app, which has Holy Grail on top. These are some of the most noteworthy, most breathtaking pieces, in my opinion, Underneath that, we have acquired taste. These are pieces that may or may not work for you depending on your personal preference and your aesthetic. Then we have miss the mark. These are things that, I mean, if you get gifted, fine. Don't throw them at the person gifting them to you, but I would personally not go out of my way to get my hands on. I would not spend months or years saving up for them. And then last but not least, we of course have don't swipe the credit card, which are things that I really don't think are worth the money and the hype. And let's start with one of the most unorthodox luxury brands out there, Chrome Hearts. I don't know if they even like the term luxury brand, even though there's nothing not luxurious about them, especially if you consider the price tag. Now, I do have a dedicated brand deep dive on Chrome Hearts, but in case you don't know anything about this brand, Chrome Hearts is a contemporary American lifestyle brand. They are the true definition of a comprehensive lifestyle brand because they have done everything under the sun using precious metals, including things like ketchup bottles, baseball bats. They even have tools like hammers made of silver, and each and every single one of their pieces is handcrafted in their workshop in LA. They are an American brand, which is something that they are incredibly proud of, and their American roots and their roots being a West Coast brand is something that inspires every single thing that they craft. Some of their big fans include Kim Kardashian, Bella Hadid, and a lot of their things are inspired by this sort of rock and roll gothic aesthetic. They are best known for their interpretation of a cross, which actually has nothing to do with religion, at least not inherently. These crosses were actually inspired by graveyards, out of all places. Now, one could argue that, of course, people put crosses on their graves for religious purposes, but you do not have to be religious to wear a cross around your neck. When it comes to Chrome Hearts, their most famous design is the Baby Fat, which is this gothic take on a cross. I'm going to say that Chrome Hearts is an acquired taste because if you are into this sort of gothic punk rock aesthetic, no one does it quite like Chrome Hearts at this level of luxury. A lot of their pieces are made of sterling silver, but they are actually aged sterling silver, so they already have this layer of oxidization. And they are a big fan of 22 karat gold, which not a lot of brands will use at this point. But if you'd like to learn more about Chrome Hearts, I will make sure to have my brand deep dive linked in the info box for you and also up here in the corner. So you can just click on the eye and learn more. And with that, let's move on to another contemporary brand, one that at this point is a lot closer to my heart and my aesthetic. Of course, I was just going on and on about this heirloom piece, a pinky ring, which heirloom pieces is what this next brand is known for, and it is Jessica McCormack, which is a brand that you might have not heard of. If that's the case, I would highly encourage you to have a browse on their site, or if you live in London or New York, pass by one of their flagships because they have an incredibly recognizable, soft, romantic, sort of old money aesthetic. Their pieces, if I had to describe them to you, it's almost like heirloom pieces with a modern twist, which is really not surprising considering Jessica's upbringing. I believe it was her dad who was an antique dealer. She grew up in New Zealand surrounded by this sort of old world luxury and abundance, which has left a really strong impact on everything that she does. A lot of her pieces will either feature antique diamonds or Georgian style diamonds, so modern diamonds, but ones that are cut in the shape of more traditional cuts and shapes and facets. She also is a big advocate of Georgian style setting, and it is a brand that is really unique, but certainly not for the faint of heart when it comes to pricing. Two collections that she is best known for are her Rush Hour collection, which has this sort of fluid yet architectural aesthetic. To me, they almost look like pieces that could have been designed by Bottega. It has they always remind me of Bottega pieces. Now, of course, Bottega doesn't do fine jewelry, but if they did, I think this is what their fine jewelry would look like. They do different earrings and bracelets, but I think the most eye-catching pieces in this collection are their ribbon-like necklaces, which they do with or without diamonds. They also do them with a solitaire diamond, so one single large piece of diamond, which are in the hundreds of thousands. But when it comes to McCormack, my favorite collection from her is her Day Diamond collection, because I think those are some of the most beautiful heirloom pieces that money can buy. And I would say that her aesthetic is so close to my heart that for me, it has to be a holy grail brand. Even though this next brand has been around a lot longer than McCormack, this next brand, which is Fred, was actually founded in 1936 in Paris. Their pieces look a lot more modern compared to McCormack's. McCormack pieces to me look a lot more archival and a lot more heirloom-like, whereas these pieces are unbelievably casual and laid back. Now, at this point, I think Fred is owned by LVMH, if I'm not mistaken, but it is a brand that has been around for decades, and they pay tribute to the effortless spirit of the French Riviera. Their most popular collection is the Force 10 collection, which was inspired by the founder's love of sailing. They have turned some really iconic motifs of sailing into a status symbol. Essentially, they took these nautical cables with a shackle clasp and they crafted them from solid gold. It's a collection that was first introduced in 1966, and if you are a regular at the French Riviera, if you like that sort of really relaxed, laid-back aesthetic of linen trousers, a linen shirt with a pair of Loro Piana open or summer walks, I'm sure it's an aesthetic that you will also appreciate. It is a collection that is quite extensive at this point. They do have some pieces that feature regular cords with a solid gold clasp, but they also have these pieces at this point crafted from solid gold. They also have a more feminine, delicate take on this particular collection, but the shackle clasp is something that you will see as a reoccurring element in Fred pieces. Personally, when it comes to this Force 10 collection, it's really not one that I appreciate the look of. So for me, when it comes to the traditional bracelets with the cord, I would say that those for me are a missed the mark. But when it comes to their more elevated pieces where the cord is replaced with a chain, or in some cases, even a tennis bracelet or a tennis necklace, those I've seen people style beautifully. So I would say that this collection, while it is not my cup of tea, I have seen it styled well. So for me, I would say that it is an acquired taste, but not one that I would spend my money on. Moving on to one of the most established American jewelry houses out there, David Yurman. Now, it was quite interesting when so many of you wanted to hear my thoughts on this brand, because it's not one that I would have ever considered talking about, and it's not because I have anything against David Yurman, but I've always seen them as kind of a mall brand, nothing really that special, and it has nothing to do with the price. I really don't think that you need to spend a lot of money to get a beautiful piece, but I think because so many of their pieces are made of silver and are seen as quite basic, I never really considered talking about their gold pieces either. But David Yurman has a huge range of creations. Of course, they are best known for their cord collection, which David himself was inspired by ancient Greek and Roman jewelry to recreate, because back in ancient times, ropes and cords were used to craft jewels. So what he did is he took a piece of wire that he ended up by hand turning into the very first cord bracelet, which at this point is iconic. It is a hugely popular and expensive collection. They offer these pieces both in solid gold and solid silver, also in a mix of gold and silver. They do them with different bookend stones, and it is a part of a lot of people's stacks, not my personal aesthetic, which is why I never really considered talking about this piece. But then they also have a collection that I actually quite like the look of, which is the Madison collection, and it is a collection of oversized chains with a statement T-bar closure. Now, if you've been with me for a while, you'll know how much I love a T-bar closure. It is a detail that Hermès has an entire dedicated collection to. Worry you not, we will move on to Hermès in just a few minutes, but I much prefer their Madison collection compared to the Court collection. It's just not something that I think looks refined in any shape or form, even though I know a lot of people love these pieces. If you are one of those people, please let us know your thoughts in the comment section. I would love to hear from you. Personally, for me, David Yurman is just a missed the mark brand. That is just my personal opinion. And again, it has nothing to do with the price. I know that it is a brand that's widely accessible and reasonably priced, but I think there are pieces out there within the same price range that will add a lot more refined of a facet to your collection, in my humble opinion at least. I love the fact that I just used the word humble when this next brand has nothing to do with humble. In fact, it is one of the most expensive brands probably in the world, and certainly in today's video, which is Cindy Chao. Now, Cindy Chao is, I don't even know if we can call her a jeweler. She is more of an architect slash sculptor, which makes a lot of sense considering that her dad was a famous architect, whereas her grandfather was an artist, a sculptor. She is a Taiwanese designer who actually studied in New York before returning to Taiwan. I believe she studied at FIT, which was my rival school when I was a college student. She studied at FIT, and then she also studied at the GIA Institute in New York before returning to Taiwan to establish her namesake brand in 2004. She's best known for two of her core collections. She has the Black Label collection, which is the most exclusive collection of, I do think that it is high jewelry. If you have no idea what the difference is between high jewelry and fine jewelry, it is the closest thing I could compare it to is ready to wear and haute couture. But if you would like to find out more about this differentiation, I will make sure to have a video linked up here for you. But her pieces are truly one of a kind when it comes to her Black Label collection, so I would consider those high jewelry or the haute couture of fine jewelry. And then she has her White Label collection, which sits a little bit closer to being ready to wear, in that you can actually buy these off the shelf. Well, I should say that you have the option to buy these off the shelf, but they will still cost you probably your soul. But I wanted to quickly talk about her Black Label collection because that's what she's best known for. She only commits to producing 36 pieces a year. Most of these pieces are actually made of titanium. Well, of course, with elements of solid white and gold. But some of her pieces are actually made of titanium because they're actually a lot lighter than gold, but a lot more difficult to mold and work with than gold is, which again speaks to her craftsmanship and her skill set. And a hallmark of her collection is the fact that they are crafted 360 degrees, which means that they look gorgeous from every single angle. They are made with the most painstaking attention to detail, which is why some of her pieces actually sit in some of the most prominent museums. They're privately owned, but they actually are exhibited because they are truly like a piece of art. And she's best known for her butterfly brooches, which she only produces one of each year. And the last time one of these went on auction, it sold for over $1 million. Yes, you heard that right, over $1 million. But there's literally one of these butterflies out there, and it is truly crafted like a piece of art. She uses nature as her inspiration for her pieces, and you just have to look at these pieces. Even if you don't have the chance to ever see these pieces in person at a museum or up close and personal, please just take some time to look at these on her website, because the attention to details, the use of stones, the use of materials is genuinely like the most beautiful painting or sculpture you'll ever see. So I would say that Cindy Chao, when it comes to her Black Label collection, is a true holy grail. Her pieces are just unmatched. Did you know that Dior also offers fine jewelry? If you didn't, this is the perfect chance for you to be introduced to this range, because I actually adore Dior's range of fine jewelry. There are two collections that I wanted to talk about in today's video, starting with the Rose de Vent collection, which is kind of the most sophisticated, most elegant ladylike take on amulets that feature colored gems. If you like things along the lines of the Van Cleef Alhambra, but you find that a little bit too ladylike, too feminine, or too overdone, this would be an incredible alternative, because it adds the same level of whimsy and playfulness to your collection. It does also play around with semi-precious gems, so things like mother of pearl and colorful sort of backings to solid gold pieces, but they feel a lot more meaningful to me. In case you did not notice about Dior, Christian Dior, the founder of the brand, was incredibly superstitious, just like myself. So amulets and protective medallions play a big role in the heritage of the brand, and that's what this particular collection is inspired by. And they have just launched a more stripped down minimalist take on this collection, which only features that iconic star that you will also find embedded in the sole of Dior shoes. So that is a really iconic collection from Dior that I do really appreciate the look of. And then the collection that I wanted to highlight today, and the picture that I chose, is the My Dior collection, which is a newer addition to the line, but not any less important. It is inspired by the graphic lines of the iconic Canage quilting, which is of course the quilting that you'll find on the Lady Dior bag. That's what this collection is inspired by. And I think if you like things along the lines of the Cartier Love bracelet, this is essentially Dior's response to that. They do these bracelets in solid white, rose, and yellow gold, and they also offer them in different colors. So some of them you can actually find with a different colored gem backing to add a pop of color to your collection. They do rings, earrings, and pendants, but I think the most sort of noteworthy pieces from this collection are their bangles and their rings, which are unbelievably wearable pieces, and I love the attention to details. The Canage quilting genuinely looks like a stitched quilting on these pieces. I am just so blown away by how much effort Dior puts into the creation of their fine jewelry, and for me it is one of the most iconic ranges of fine jewelry when it comes to fashion houses. From French sophistication, we're moving on to Italian whimsy, and this is Pomellato. Pomellato is a brand that at this point I believe is owned by the Kering Group, but they are an iconic heritage Italian brand that was founded in Milan, and they are known for their use of colorful gems and bold designs. Here we have the Pom Pom Dot collection, which I love the story behind. These pieces are actually inspired by a really utilitarian idea. They are inspired by the buttons you'll find on your pieces that have been turned into these really fun little amulets and medallions. They do them in a ton of different shapes and colors. Well, not really shapes because they are buttons, but they will do them in different sizes, in different width, and in different colors. They will use not only different colored diamonds, but also different semi-precious gems, so things like mother of pearl and malachite, to add a pop of color to an outfit. And these buttons are supposed to be an emblem of protection and belonging, which I think is very sweet. And then another collection that they're quite well known for is their Nudo collection, which nudo means naked in Italian, and they feature these large cushion cut or cabochon cut diamonds that are essentially floating on your fingers. I don't think that they are the most refined. They are definitely not my taste. I don't know, the Pom Pom Dot collection, kind of sweet, but it's not a collection that I would personally spend my money on. Jumping back to another French heritage jewelry house, one that is not only a fine jewelry maison, but is also known for their high jewelry creations. It is a brand that's been around since the 1950s, I'm pretty sure, and even though they have this long-standing heritage and history, they're not really well known in the public eye. It's not a brand that you'll hear a lot of people talking about, but it is a brand called Repossi, and they are, I'm pretty sure, an LVMH owned brand. But as I mentioned, they've been around for decades, and there are two collections that they are quite well known for. Let's start with the one that I don't particularly love. I was actually asked about this brand in my last video, and I did say that I like some of their collections more than others, starting with the one that I don't particularly love, which is actually inspired by Normandy's iconic cliffs and the jagged landscape there that has resulted in a really modern geometric range of creations. They are probably best known for their ring sets, which is the one depicted here. So it has all these edges, which they say is inspired by Normandy. To me, they remind me of cat ears that you would wear on Halloween. Not my favorite, but I know a lot of people appreciate this collection. And then another collection that Repossi is quite well known for is the Sarti Sur Vie collection, which includes a line of rings, earrings, and even pendants. And they really often incorporate diamonds and emeralds. And they have this illusion of floating because the setting and the majority of the mechanism and the gold or the metal goes behind your finger or behind your ear, so you're only really exposed to the visual of the diamonds, which is really interesting, really modern. Personally, even though I do think I have quite a modern minimalist aesthetic, it's really just not my favorite. I'm going back and forth between Miss the Mark and Acquired Taste. While I do think you can style these well, I personally would not spend my money on this brand. Another French heritage jewelry house is, I don't know how to pronounce it, Chaumet or Chaumet. Please let me know in the comment section, but it is a brand that has been around again for decades. I think they go way back to Napoleon, and they are known for having a really elegant, sophisticated aesthetic. They are really well known at this point for their the Chaumet collection, which features, well, they at this point even have creations inspired by little bees, but they are better recognized for their pieces inspired by this honeycomb shape, which I really dislike. To me, they look really outdated. For some reason, when I think of that collection, I always think of people with lava lamps. Like, lava lamps were cool 50 years ago, and that's how I look at this collection. To me, there's really something unfinished and just weird about that particular collection, and not weird in a good way. So that collection I don't love, but it is the one that I think most people will buy and think of when they think of Chaumet. It just wouldn't be a collection that I would look to or I would invest in. I have to be honest, for me, it is a little bit of a miss the mark. A brand better known for their watches than their jewelry, but they do have an extremely tightly curated range of fine jewelry, which is Piaget. Piaget has two collections that really stand out. The first one is their rose collection, which is actually one of my favorite takes on roses. Of course, roses are a recurring element and inspiration in the world of luxury fine jewelry, but I do love the way Piaget reinterpreted roses. They have some very simple, basic designs made of solid gold. I am personally partial to the ones that are made of diamonds. They even have rings that go on several different fingers, and while they are a pretty penny, they do make an incredible statement, and they are genuinely crafted like a piece of art. Not my aesthetic, but if you love that really feminine look, it is a great brand to turn to, and it's certainly not overdone. And then they also have the Possession collection, which is inspired by turning movements, and most of the pieces in this collection kind of remind me of the type of jewelry that Doctor Strange would wear in the Marvel movies. I'm pretty sure that Doctor Strange is a Marvel movie. They have, for example, one bangle that features all these different colored gems that is quite interesting, and I'm sure it's exquisitely made, but personally not a collection that I would jump on. But the rose collection I really do enjoy, and considering how understated this house is, I would say that it could be an acquired taste depending on your personal aesthetic. I think this might be the first time that we talk about pearl jewelry on my channel, which kind of tells you how I feel about pearls, not my personal aesthetic. But if we're going to talk about pearls, we have to talk about Mikimoto, the ultimate authority, the queen of pearls. Funny enough, they actually have a collaboration with Chrome Hearts, which is one of the only collections of pearl jewelry that I actually enjoy. But Mikimoto is an icon when it comes to pearl jewelry. Even though they use several different types of pearl, they are best known for their use of Japanese Akoya pearls, and they actually only use the top 1% of each harvest. They have several different collections. Of course, you can find your classic iconic pearl pieces from the brand, but I prefer the ones that actually blend pearl with more modern sculptural details made of gold. This one that we have here is the Jeu de Ruban collection. Again, you'll have to forgive me for butchering every single French term in today's video, but at the end of the day, you do not come here for a French lesson. Anyway, this is a collection that once again blends these iconic, quite orthodox pearls with an unexpected twist of these sculptural ribbon details and diamonds, which I actually think are, you know, if this is a collection or this is an aesthetic that you appreciate, this is as good as it gets. I think these earrings are just around $15,000. While pearls are not my cup of tea, credit must be given where credit is due, and no one does pearls quite like Mikimoto does. And it's quite funny because this next brand also has a collection inspired by bows and ribbons, but it is Graff. Graff is of course one of the best known, most prestigious names when it comes to diamond jewelry and engagement rings. Two collections that I wanted to talk about here, because when it comes to Graff engagement rings, it's really not something that I would spend my money on. I have talked about buying designer engagement rings and why I don't think it is the best use of your money, which if you would like to hear more about that, I will make sure to have a video linked up here. The same goes for Graff. As beautiful as their diamond jewelry is, when it comes to a basic solitaire ring, there is really nothing that stands out about Graff pieces. But if you're buying these pieces because of the design elements, Tilda's bow, I particularly love the rings and the pendants in this collection that feature a single hanging pear-shaped diamond, which again are almost inaccessibly priced. But if you love your designer fine jewelry, I do think that it is a range that is exquisitely crafted. They do have some more minimal, more simple pieces in this collection, but for $20,000, I don't think those are worth your money. I would much prefer for you to look at the pendants and the necklaces with the dangling diamonds, and I think this pendant is $31,000. So again, not for the faint of heart. And then they're also quite well known for the Graff line collection, which is their take on a daily cuff or a daily ring. It is very obviously inspired by the success of the Love collection. Not to say that it is a dupe or a replica in any shape or form. We will have one of those coming up sooner than you would think, but it has a very similar feel to it. It has this facet design, which is of course inspired by the facets that you'll find on a diamond. Really would not go for those. They kind of remind me of a Zaha Hadid building, but I would personally much rather save my money to buy an apartment in a Zaha Hadid building than buy this piece and add it to my collection. But because of the beauty of this bow collection, I'm going back and forth between acquired taste and miss the mark, but here we are not just ranking collections, but brands as a whole. And because of that, for me, Graff is just one of those brands that is just really not worth the money. A brand that you will certainly need no introduction to is Louis Vuitton. but you might not know that they're actually an emerging powerhouse when it comes to high jewelry. They have some of the most exquisite pieces of high jewelry that will set you back millions and millions of dollars. But I just had to show you this piece because it is genuinely one of the most beautiful pieces of jewelry I have ever seen. It is called the Apogee, and it's actually inspired by the robust details and features you will find on a trunk. It features a centerpiece, which is an over 30 carat Brazilian drop emerald, and a staggering 10.5 carats of decolored, internally flawless diamonds in Louis Vuitton's very own cut. Because yes, Louis Vuitton has their very own shape of diamond, which you do not have to spend millions of dollars for. They have several collections, including the Louis Vuitton Diamond Collection, that will rely on this very special shape that is exclusively available from Louis Vuitton, which I actually adore. If you love your diamond jewelry, but you're looking for something really fun, modern, and unexpected, that would be a particularly interesting collection for you to look into. As I mentioned, I love the diamond studs in the Louis Vuitton Star Cut, and then they also have several other collections of fine jewelry. They have recently launched the Demier collection, which is their most modern collection, featuring really clean lines, as you would expect, inspired by their Demier print. But I think the collection that they are best known for is the Empreinte collection, which of course features the Louis Vuitton initials and the trunk nail print, which is the collection I was referring to when I said earlier that we do have a Cartier dupe coming up. This collection is so obviously, in fact, it's quite cringy how obviously this collection was inspired by the success of the Cartier Love, because this collection could not be any closer to the Cartier Love range with those trunk stud inspired emblems. I mean, I think it is really a big stretch to say that this collection was inspired by their trunk making when they just wanted to create some wearable bangles that look and feel very similar to the Cartier collection. I really do not like this particular range, but if you do, just know that the bangles come in several different widths, in several different colors. But of course, the most popular from the range is the Pavé collection, or the Pavé pieces in white gold. They have, I think, bangles, earrings, and definitely rings in this range, but it's definitely the bangles that they are best known for. Not my cup of tea, but because of their high jewelry creations and because of the fact that they have their very own cut of diamond, to me, it is just a holy grail because it's not something you can find anywhere else. I will not be revealing anything new when I tell you that I love Hermès' fine jewelry. It is a métier of the brand that I have been singing the praises of quite literally for years. I think the quality, the craftsmanship, the designs are so beautiful for the price, at least they used to be, because their prices have definitely been hiking over the years. So I did not want to go on and on about their creations because it's something that, as I told you, I've been talking about for years. If you want to have a closer look at some of my favorite pieces, I will make sure to have my Hermès fine jewelry collection linked up here for you. The piece that I picked to talk about today is their large Kelly bracelet, which is of course inspired by not only the Kelly twist closure, but also by the print of Perosus croc. So they have this range of Kelly bracelet that will either be made of solid gold with diamonds, and the band will be made of actual croc. They do them in several different colors, including the Himalaya colorway, or you can also find this collection with the print of Perosus croc, but it's actually printed onto solid gold. These pieces are truly breathtaking, but two collections that are a lot more accessibly priced yet make just as much statement are the Clos de Forge collection, which is a relatively new addition to the Hermès range, which they continue expanding on. For this current season, they are doing a new Pavé bracelet, which will feature, I think, 3 or 4 carats of diamonds. It is fully encrusted with diamonds, and it is quite reminiscent of the Justin Cleef bracelet from Cartier. So if that's an aesthetic that you appreciate, but you are looking for something slightly more clean and minimal, that piece might be something that you want to look into. I mean, let me tell you, it is not for the faint of heart because it will set you back $56,000, but it is out there. And then a collection that is becoming more and more popular is their Audace collection, with rings starting at $20,000. It is a collection that at one point was exclusively high jewelry, but they have slowly started simplifying pieces so they can be mass produced or sold direct to customers, not in a way that would make these pieces one of a kind. And they're also introducing this collection in white gold for fall winter 2025, because previously it was exclusively available in rose gold. I went to an Hermès jewelry event last October where I had the chance to try on some of the Audace pieces, which again will be linked up here for you in case you would like to have a look at these pieces up close and personal. But my favorite pieces are their double rings, which they do have several iterations of, but I would say that Hermès fine jewelry is certainly a holy grail. This next brand is to the UK what Tiffany is to the US. It is one of the most prestigious, most prominent, comprehensive lifestyle brands in the UK, or I should say it was, because there's no doubt about the fact that they have lost a lot of their cultural relevance, but they've held a royal warrant since Queen Victoria, and they were really seen as one of the most prestigious places to shop on Bond Street. In fact, a lot of their jewelry to this day is made on Bond Street. They have a hidden workshop right above the flagship that produces a lot of their pieces, but it's really not a brand that we talk about too much these days. And even though they did not start out by crafting fine jewelry, it is the department that they are best known for today, which is Asprey. Now, it is a brand that I really don't have too much of a connection to or an interest in, but it is an iconic house that I wanted to talk about here. As I mentioned, they are a comprehensive lifestyle brand, which means that they also have their own range of bags, which in my humble opinion is incredibly overpriced. It is really not a house that I would ever really consider when it comes to handbags, but they're really proud of the fact that they produce some exceptional exotic bags in-house, which I'm sure that they are exceptional, but the designs, the attention to details, their choice of color is really not something that would encourage me to look at these pieces twice, but that is just my personal opinion. And then when it comes to their fine jewelry, here we have the Lily collection, which is certainly a showstopper. A lot of their pieces are inspired by nature. Their Lily collection is not my favorite, but there's no doubt about the fact that they are truly like a piece of art. The collection that I actually like the most is, I think it's called the Woodland collection, which is actually inspired by British forests. It is a collection of charms in the shape of things that you will find in the British forest. So things like oak leaves, acorns, mushrooms. They even have little butterflies. I think they had a limited edition winter collection with things that you would find in the British countryside in the winter. So things like a snowman. They had, I think, even some little birds. It is a really charming, sweet collection, but really for teenagers, not for adults. And because of the price, they are not things that you would buy for most teenagers. So to me, this collection feels quite outdated and just not one that I would personally see myself spending my money on, or I would even feel comfortable going to with a friend. Not because there's anything wrong with the store or anything wrong with the brand, but I think it's just time to retire or hire someone who can breathe some fresh air into this company, because they definitely need it. And last but not least, let's talk about one of the most prestigious, most established houses when it comes to diamonds that I very kindly call duty-free diamonds, which is Chopard. Now, Chopard, they are of course known for their watches. They have a huge range of jewelry, And they have a huge range of high jewelry that they will really often lend to celebrities who are going to the Oscars or big award shows. But to me, there is a really big disconnect between these high jewelry pieces and the fine jewelry that they offer, because most brands, while of course there is a huge difference not only in terms of price but also in terms of look between high and fine jewelry, there is usually, you can tell that they are usually by the same people or by the same designers. But when it comes to Chopard, they feel like they are from two completely different worlds. Like there is just not even a comparison or any sort of consistency and coherence, because their ready-to-wear pieces to me feel really cheap and really overdone. But some people like them, so let's talk about what they are best recognized for, which in my opinion is the Happy Diamonds, which is, you know, it was an ingenious idea when it first launched. It was a collection that featured a group of playful diamonds that were individually set, and they were dancing between two sapphire crystal sort of windows, which I actually have a big issue with, because those windows were branded, so they actually have the word Chopard etched into them. I think these pieces would immediately look a lot better or a lot more refined if they didn't have that Chopard engraving, but they do. And then they have these dancing diamonds in different shapes, but they're best known for their hearts, so much so that they even have the Happy Hearts collection, which is Chopard's iconic emblem, they call it. And this Happy Heart collection combines two of Chopard's most famous icons, the heart and the dancing diamonds, which in my opinion looks unbelievably cheap. I think it's really hard to make a traditional heart look refined and expensive, and I don't think this brand has succeeded with that in a really long time. So because of that, for me, Chopard, unless you're buying their traditional diamond pieces, because they do offer some beautiful diamond creations, when it comes to their commercial mainstream line, it is not something that I would personally feel comfortable recommending that you spend your hard-earned money on. But this brings us to the end of part 2 of me ranking the best and worst luxury fine jewelry brands out there. This is my ranking and these are my thoughts. Let's turn the tables and let me know in the comment section what you think about these brands and these pieces. Do you have a favorite brand or a favorite piece? I cannot wait to hear from you. And while you're down there, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't done so yet. I really appreciate you being here and watching, and I will see you back here with a new video really, really soon.